Howdy guys, it's Joe, and I've been playing a ton of Overwatch competitive for every single season ever since the game came out. And I found a lot of different ways to climb, one-tricking, playing DPS, playing whatever. There's a lot of different ways that you can climb, and simply playing the game a ton probably will do that. But today I want to talk to you guys about, from what my personal opinion is, the easiest way to get to Diamond, or the easiest way to climb in Overwatch competitive. Now with that said, I want to make sure that you know this is not the fastest way to climb. Not at all. I'd say the fastest way to climb is probably becoming a God McCree, a God Soldier, or a God Tracer, maybe even a God Genji, carrying every single game or anything like that. But that is very difficult. It takes a ton of time, a ton of effort, and if you're trying to find, one of the easier ways to go through it, here might be it. Now, as well with this, I'm going to say that just about anybody could eventually get to Diamond by doing this. It's not way too hard, it's basic as heck, and, simply just getting a good team comp pretty much can actually help you carry more games than doing average on the average DPS. So, you might want to keep that in mind. And as well, I'm not trying to put down anyone that's using this strategy, and I'm not trying to put down any of the players doing this, because, we need more of these players. I'm just saying, if you want a way that might be easier than, trying to put thousands of hours into McCree, this might be it, and you should be able to get to Diamond quite decently easily. I've been seeing like hundreds of different players that used to be gold, used to be silver, something like that, that have quickly climbed up in the near seasons by doing this. And what is it? Well, it's simply to play support, and more particularly play Mercy, or maybe Lucio, but a more defensive Lucio, because offensive Lucio does take a lot of time to learn and a lot of time to get good at. Now, that does sound too simple, too good to be true. And I will say that, not every single second, not every single game you're going to be able to carry, you're going to be able to get your team up there. But I feel like the thing that's most important and, should get into your mind the most about playing support and climbing with it is the fact that right now there's so little support players that you essentially give your team a hugely better team composition. And let's say you were an average DPS and you lock in DPS, that's not going to be helping your team way too much. But if you can happen to get a second or at least a first support on your team that's very good, that doesn't kill themselves, that doesn't do a lot of stupid crap that a lot of supports sometimes do, you're going to be helping your team more than a lot of other cases. Again, you might need half decent DPS, you might need half decent tanks, but your team and the enemy team have the same chance of having the same players, so you can't really take that into account way too much. But overall, I'm going to say that playing support is just so useful for yourself. And mainly I've been seeing a lot of players, Mercy mains and Lucio mains, that have been, stuck in bronze, stuck in gold, stuck in silver for a few seasons in the past, like 1 to season 3 or something. But when season 4 and 5 finally came out and everybody started playing DPS, well, they actually started to climb very fast. And I'm going to say again, it's because of team comp, and it's because, when almost absolutely nobody is playing support, there's some, but not really way too many, and you finally put yourself in there, you're going to really quickly start filling the slots that are needed to be filled. And you're going to start yourself, climbing up quite a bit. Now, what you want to do though, other than, just playing support, because that itself is not going to 100% help you climb, what you want to do is some of these main things that I'm going to tell you in a second. And the first main thing is to, instead of focusing on your aim, instead of focusing on trying to get as many kills as possible, instead, think about your team, look at where they're positioned, and actually look over your team and start to try to shot call for them. A lot of the times, if you're a DPS player, you focus on yourself. You focus on where you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to get kills, where's the maximum damage, how not to die. You have a lot of stuff going on at all times. But a lot of the time, if you're playing somebody like Mercy, while you are trying to, keep yourself alive, you do have a decent amount of downtime that you can actually look at your team, see where they're positioned, and try to shot call where they might want to go. For example, you might see a Reaper way off in the boonies while the rest of your team is right next to each other. And you might think, Reaper probably can't kill Pharah by himself and probably can't get that Doomfist by himself. Let me call that guy back in, hopefully he'll listen, and we can go in as a team instead of him trying to get a flank that probably wouldn't work in the first place. As well with that, if you see that somebody on the enemy team is always at really bad positioning and always out of position, maybe you could tell your Tracer that isn't seeing them, this guy's over here, you should go and kill that guy. I feel like being able to shot call quite a bit can put your team together a lot better than simply getting quite a few half-decent plays. Now, of course, again, if you were a god DPS and you can kill everybody all the time, then you could do that and you could carry quite a bit better than this. But if you aren't in that state and if you don't have that much time to practice, again, this can be quite a bit better than, again, just being an average DPS that gets an average amount of kills. In that situation, you aren't going to be doing as much as if you were just helping your team for the long run, I'm going to say. Next, if you decide to actually play support and play this way, I'm going to tell you to play very defensive and supply consistent heals. And mainly, don't suicide yourself. I don't know why, but I feel like a lot of people when they're playing support, even, you know, with the play support a decent amount, go way too offensive, go for way too many kills. And while you might be able to get a few, all the times your team just needs more consistent healing. Especially if you have a second healer, which is a player that doesn't really know how to play heals, you really got to focus on healing up your teammates, keeping them popped off, and making sure that they don't die. I know it's not as fun, but it's something that needs to really be done. As well with this, if you're playing with teammates that have, you know, like never played support really in the last few months, you got to make sure that you tell them as well to play defensive, try to shot call with them as well, and, you know, heal them up, keep them alive, do whatever with that. It's just, overall, a lot of people go too ham with supports right now when they don't have the mechanical skill for it. You know, you see people like DSP Stanky getting all these kills with Lucio, so you're like, you know what, I'm going to do the exact same. And unless you have the skill for that, you're probably just going to end up killing yourself. So play a little bit more defensive, wait it out a little bit more, and just don't kill yourself, because I feel like a lot of supports are doing that. And if you're one that doesn't, you can actually win a lot of games just with that alone. Just by keeping your supports alive, keeping your healing up, keeping your defenses up, you might be able to win a game by that, which is kind of dumb, but it's definitely something that you want to keep into your attention. Because, yeah, supports are important. Probably one of the most important roles to keep alive and to keep, you know, healing up everybody with. Now, after that, I'm going to tell you guys, if you are playing this, look over your team in the pregame lobby, and if you see anybody that plays support or tank that's happened to be in the DPS role right now, and, you know, you have like 4 DPSs, maybe you could ask them to go support or to go tank. And if you do it as a support player, they can't really get mad. Now, if you're a DPS player and you lock in Reaper, for example, like I do sometimes, and if I ask somebody to maybe go support or go tank, they're probably going to look at me, probably going to say, why don't you do that, you piece of garbage? You should switch. I'm not going to switch. I'm going to play my hero, blah, blah, blah. Go from there. Even if they have almost no time on the current DPS, and even if they have a ton of time on, let's say, Lucio or Anna or Diva or Winston or whatever, you know, they just want to play that hero, they're going to get mad at you. But if you're playing support, they can't really get mad at you for asking them to go their support or their tank main that they usually play, because you're playing a support yourself. You can't really get mad at somebody for asking you to go something that they're already playing. And I don't know, I feel like that's something that's actually a skill and something that only supports can do. Not even tanks can really do this, only really supports. And you want to make sure that you try to abuse that a little bit. Of course, don't yell at people, don't get really mad at them, but if you just simply ask people, supports are the one that can definitely do that the most. And again, I feel like you might be underestimating yourself. If you can get a person that normally plays tank to go tank, and you can actually get a half decent team comp, yeah, that's actually going to win you the game by itself for the most part. So that's something you want to keep in mind. That's not really like, you know, actually gameplay meta, it's just something that's like out of game meta, a little bit weird. Now, I guess continuing from that and, you know, using the previous strategy I just went over, you can try to do this. In every single game, try your best to get at least one tank other than you. You know, ask people around, see if somebody will go that, do whatever. Don't even always try to get 2 tanks or 2 supports, you know. You don't always have to try to do that. If you can just happen to get at least one other tank and then use a support and then 4 DPS, you can still win that match. I'm going to say that 5 DPS has almost a 0% chance to win. It does win sometimes, and if all your DPS is better, it can win. But if you can get at least one tank to tank up a lot of damage, if you can get one, maybe Zarya, or, I know that's probably one of the worst ones to get, but even if you can get a Zarya, that could help you quite a decent amount. Of course, Diva, Winston, or Ryan would be a little bit more useful, but if you can just happen to get yourself up, one tank, one person for your team to fall behind, and then use support, you might be able to win that game. Again, I'm going to say you pretty much always want 2 supports in every single game, in every single situation, because they are so good, but a lot of the times you can't really get that, and I'd rather honestly have, you know, 1 support, 1 tank, then 2 supports, but I guess either way works. If you can get at least 2 supports, that could work halfway as well, but if you possibly can, get tanks, because without tanks, your DPS is probably going to just die really quickly, and your healing isn't going to be nearly as effective without having some big body to heal. And as far as the final thing that's going to help you the most, I'm going to say, if you are happening to pick Mercy in this situation, is to use your ult to get numbers advantage. Not just to get, you know, 5-man, 4-man reses. You know, I was doing this myself in the last Mercy video I made. It was a complete big mistake. Instead of doing that, happen to try to just, again, get number advantages. Let's say that 2 of your teammates are dead and 1 of the enemy team is dead. Well, if you ult as Mercy, you get a 6v5, and you should probably win that. Again, you've only revived 2 people, but you do have the benefit now. And if, you know, you have the same amount of ults, the same amount of everything, you should technically win that 6v5. Again, you won't always, I can't guarantee that, but it does give your team a huge chance to win that. As well, I'm going to say, again, just don't save your ult every single second for 5-man reses, 4-man reses. And a lot of the times, even if you get those, it won't matter. If you happen to save 4 people's life, but the enemy team still has, 6 people, so you're in a 5v6, that's not nearly as good as, getting yourself in the 6v5. You want to think that through. You want to think what can give you the numbers advantage and what really can help you out and help you win the most. As well with that, if you see somebody like a Bastion that's really been helping you push, you could happen to revive him solo res, or if you have like a Zarya Tracer combo and they both have their ults, and you just revive it to a 6v6, I'd still go for that as well. Just kind of think about how you want to use your ult a little bit better, and make sure not to just save it for way too long, as a lot of people do. But in general, that's what I'm going to say are some of the easiest ways to climb to Diamond. Again, I would say, if you want to climb as fast as possible, you want to put in as much effort as possible, you want to win as quickly as possible, you probably should play DPS. You should probably one-trick DPS, go up there, enjoy yourself. I'm not going to say anything else because that is obviously the best way to climb. It's been proven by almost every single player in the top 500 being DPS except for like maybe 50 or something. It's really ridiculous. That's the best role in the game. Obviously, Blizzard supports that role the most. They love that role. But if you want a different way that might be a little bit easier, that you might be able to do yourself if you don't have a ton of time, there you go. Again, not the fastest way, but in my opinion, probably one of the easiest ways. As well with this, you maybe could just go tank. That's very similar to playing support. But I'd say a lot of times it's easier to make more shot calls as support than tank, but tank can push up and have people follow them more than a support. So you can either play both. Just not DPS. DPS, I'm going to say, is the hardest one to climb up with, but again, the fastest. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Tell me what your own opinions are. Again, I'm not trying to say, you're bad, you're not putting any effort, anything like that. If you're playing support, I'm really grateful for you, and I feel like it does still take a lot of time, a lot of effort. It still is really hard. It's just maybe a little bit easier, and it takes a lot more time. So, if you want to do that, there you go. That's, again, just my own opinion, though. And if you have your own opinion, make sure to leave that down in the comment section down below. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a wonderful day.